What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today we've got quite a lot to talk about. Some pretty interesting topics, such as some actual information leaked about DLC 2. We'll also be talking about Mars as a location, some things Bungie said about events, vault space, and raid loot, and some other things happening in-game as well. So firstly, let's talk about an actually real DLC leak, not that fake made-up stuff about Nezarec that I covered in my recent video, but this information actually has multiple sources that match up with things in-game we've seen about DLC 2 so far. But these leaks come from the PlayStation Store, actually a few different versions around the world that seem to have slipped up and revealed the name of the DLC, which Bungie haven't properly revealed just yet. It's always been left blank, and all we know so far is that it's coming in spring a few months from now. So as it turns out, the name of this DLC seems to be called Gods of Mars, which some of you may have heard before because it did leak a few months ago, but it kind of got buried at the time, so not many people saw it. But it also leaked a few days ago as well, the same thing from a PSN store, just from a different source, which I'll talk about in a second. So before we talk about where the info came from, let's talk about why the name Gods of Mars actually makes a ton of sense and how it fits into the lore and things that have been hinted at so far inside the game about the expansion. So firstly is the Arecibo adventure, where a Warmind actually hijacks our ghost and tells us to go to the ice caps of Mars, the same way multiple adventures and scannables teased about the Infinite Forest and Osiris. Lots more hint about Warmind stuff on the ice caps of Mars, which by the way is true. Mars isn't just red sand everywhere, and that matches the cover art we've seen, which is why it's all blue and icy. This place in the cover art appears to be the same place the Warmind is telling us to go in the Arecibo adventure. Another giveaway inside this picture is that Phobos can be seen in the background, that weirdly shaped rock that's floating in the sky. That's actually the moon called Phobos, the moon of Mars, which you can see anywhere from Mars in Destiny 1. It's this thing right here. Same thing in the cover art. Phobos does have a very weird and kind of distinct shape, which is obviously the exact same as this picture. Looking up and you can see Phobos in the background of the skybox. Now the third thing is the ending cinematic is also a big clue of where we're going in the expansions. Luke Smith even said in an interview with Edge how this is pretty much the same order of where the future of the story of Destiny 2 goes, i.e. the expansions and DLCs, which he also mentioned. So the very first place the light goes is to Mercury, which was DLC 1. The second place it goes to is Mars, which also matches up with, of course, it being DLC 2. If you look very closely, just before the light hits Mars, you can see at the top there the snowy ice caps, so very subtle hinting they snuck in there, but even more hints about the icy areas of Mars. Now, even more proof is that we already have the loading screens and orbit screens of Mars as well. They're already in the game. The only location in Destiny 2 that we have a Crucible map for but can't actually go just yet is Mars. The PlayStation exclusive map Retribution takes place here and is set on a Cabal ship that flies over the red sandy areas. So at launch, the two planets that we couldn't visit but did have Crucible maps for were Mercury and Mars. Definitely not a coincidence, but we obviously got Mercury in the Curse of Osiris, and now that leaves Mars as the only place left we can't go to properly in game but does have a Crucible map and a loading screen. So let's talk about where these leaks actually came from and the sources of these images. These were accidentally shown on both the Japanese PSN store in September and more recently, a few days ago, the Indonesian PSN store as well. So two completely different and separate sources, months apart, showing us the same info. The Japanese screenshot was taken on the 8th of September, believe it or not, and that's why most of you probably never heard of it. The 8th of September was, of course, 2 days after Destiny 2 came out, so the internet forums are basically blowing up about the actual game, and this post got completely buried under the hype, so that's why it didn't get much attention. It's also worth mentioning, back on the 8th of September, at that point in time, we hadn't actually seen this art shown off with the text saying Curse of Osiris on the Season Pass picture. Although it did leak from Kotaku, we did know that was the name. Bungie hadn't officially said it was called Curse of Osiris yet, so it was unannounced, and all we had was this image with no names. So it proves this Japanese image could not be photoshopped or faked, because it literally came out before Bungie even said the words Curse of Osiris or published it on any image. Now, the second one was screenshotted only a few days ago and sent to me by one of my subscribers called Half Cubed. This one shows the exact same info, just more crystal clear. He didn't say what country this is from, but I believe it's the Indonesian store because the currency is RP, but I could be wrong. If any of you guys know what country uses RP as a currency, then let me know down below in the comments. So I could be wrong. I believe it's Indonesia, but there you go. Gods of Mars seems to be the name so far for Expansion 2. It is also worth noting, while these images are definitely legit, it's still not 100% confirmed that is going to be the name, because Bungie could easily change it to something else, and that is the sole reason why companies don't announce things in development, because things get changed, so it is unlikely, but you never know. But it so far appears to be this name, Gods of Mars. So I know that was a lot of information just thrown at you, but whenever I cover leaks, I always like to explain exactly where the info comes from so you guys are informed, which is not something I can do with the Nezarec leak because there are no actual files. I can't show you or put any links to code about Heralds of Nezarec because they flat out don't exist. They're made up, like I said, and if they were actually in the game, you would see real data miners show the files and the game code, but nobody has found that because, again, it's made up. And a lot of you in the last video asked me how I'm so confident that leaked stuff about Nezarec is fake, but that is basically why. It's always important to look into where the leaks come from and also to compare the info to what we got in Curse of Osiris, because of the same price and same size expansions. realistically speaking, while 2 completely new enemy races sounds cool, I wish it was true, we didn't even get 1 new enemy race in Destiny 2, which was this massive release. So getting 2 new races in such a small expansion, the same size as Curse of Osiris, doesn't make too much sense. But I could sit here and list 15 more reasons of why it's fake, but I don't want to waste more of your time. I think you get the picture by now, and we have other things to talk about. But lots of stuff going around about DLC 2 recently, which is still a few months away. But of course, any more news or official info or leaks, I will let you guys know on the channel, so stay tuned. So moving on, let's talk about some updates Bungie recently gave about Destiny 2 in general, and I guess some community concerns. But Christopher Barrett hopped on Twitter to mention a few things which are all fairly hot topics right now. Firstly, the Iron Banner and Faction Rally events are going to return in January with new ornaments, which we've seen before. And they'll finally also have their own sparrows, ghosts, and ships, which has been most notably absent. If you couldn't tell already, pretty much every single ship and ghost and sparrow is in Eververse when you compare to Destiny 1. Only a small percentage was in there, but in Destiny 2, like 99% of everything are in these loot boxes. Now, in my opinion, I feel like it's a huge missed opportunity for a lot of endgame rewards. One of the biggest complaints about Destiny 2 was the endgame. There is so much stuff that could be grinded for in all these loot boxes. Like imagine, for example, if you could unlock the exotic weapon ornaments for guns by getting 1,000 kills with it, something like that. And if you see someone with that black and red sunshot ornament or a white merciless, you know they've grinded for that weapon and they've used it a lot, not just got lucky with a loot box. Also, the ships there have some real significance in the story. You got Osiris's personal ship, the same as Saint 14, Akora, Ashimir, and so on. So many characters, and these are very important to the actual lore of Destiny. Like imagine if you could replay a super difficult version of Saint 14's quest for a chance at getting his Grey Pigeon ship, the same as Black Spindle in Destiny 1. If there was a really difficult heroic version of the mission, and a small chance people would 100% grind it. And to me, it just seems really weird, like a bit of a disconnect to have such cool items like the shotgun and the emblem that you can get in-game by doing the quest. You see him, and then for some reason you go to Tess and she's selling his ship. Like, it doesn't make too much sense. Seems like a real story disconnect. And that's why I said the Sagira exotic shell is probably the only thing like this they've done right, because you have to actually grind every single forge weapon. It is a serious grind, it takes a ton of time. You have to be really dedicated to get the Sagira ghost shell. And I can see like dozens of items in these loot boxes, which should really be inside the game, things to grind for and actually reasons to play the game and do some of these hard activities. So it's nice to see Bungie finally acknowledge and start to begin that with the events, but I really hope there's a lot more like this and more exotic items, especially as endgame incentives like a raid and trial ship that aren't inside Eververse. Right now we can see a bunch of Iron Banner items and also things for Faction Rally. Obviously at this point it's too late for them to just take the items and put them now as endgame rewards, but I'm hoping in future all this cool looking stuff isn't just in loot boxes but actually grindable in game. So Chris also mentioned refactoring the loot system in raids to make sure the most difficult activities in the game are the most rewarding. Obviously completely agree with this. I want to see that prestige version of the raid layer drop some really cool stuff. I think one of the most potentially significant things he said was how they hear the player feedback on Eververse and want players to feel respected while also delivering content consistently. This is a real big one because it's probably one of the only times you've ever heard someone from Bungie even slightly mention feedback or criticism towards Eververse, so we have no idea what they're planning on doing to fix or improve it, but let's hope there's some big ones. Now, something else Bungie also normally stray away from mentioning, which I've never understood personally, is vault space. For some reason, it seems to be a taboo subject that we always ask for but never get a response to. But Chris did say they do have a short-term solution and a long-term one. So again, nice to hear. It's hard to get too excited because we have no idea when or even what these changes are going to be, but at this point we just have to wait and see what they're planning on doing. Now, as far as short-term vault space solutions go, obviously back in Destiny 1 we had kiosks for a ton of legendary and cosmetic items. Seeing as we do have fixed weapon rolls now, something a lot of us have always said for a long time is it would make a ton of sense to have a kiosk for all legendary weapons and armor, similar to a lot of legendary items back in Destiny 1. Another suggestion would be to make maybe more than 10 items in your inventory per category, so that's something that's been requested for a very long time, would also ease vault space issues. But I do feel like there's got to be a lot more to this vault space thing than we know. It does always seem to be a present issue. The Bungie have never flat out said this is the reason why you don't have infinite vault space. I feel like it's one of Destiny's biggest mysteries, one I didn't think we'd still be talking about into 2018, but let's hope these short and long-term solutions actually fix it. But there you go, Bungie is going to have a mountain of an update to post in January. There are a ton of things they've said that we're going to hear about when they come back, so expect a ton of pretty large blog updates to be posted around then, and of course the January update itself to be launching later in the month with a lot of those improvements, changes and fixes that I've mentioned in previous videos. Wanted to thank you guys again for all the constant support on the channel this year. I know I say all the time, but you guys have been awesome, and I can't thank you enough. Hope you're enjoying the holidays, and I've got a couple cool surprises coming on the channel in the new year, so keep an eye out for those. But as always, if you enjoyed this video and want to show some support, then a like rating down below would be much appreciated. If you want to watch another Destiny 2 video from me, then you can click the image on screen to be taken to it, and I'll see you guys next one.